Alright, Destiny players, welcome to the first ever thehyperloops.com deck tech. I'm BobbySapphire. This is a deck I've been working a lot on the past couple weeks and ended up running at a win-a-box on Sunday. I did not win the box. I lost to one of the guys who split the box in the finals, who's been terrorizing Massachusetts with a 4-color, 4-character deck. 3-color, 4-character deck. I'm sure you've seen that posted online. And lost to a pretty interesting play scenario where I could choose to play around Riposte or play around basically being dead to a good reroll, because I had to use a resource to play around Riposte by doing enough damage to put his final character at 1 and below the shields. And didn't do the damage. I played what I thought was safe and took the resource and got riposted to death. So that's how that went down. This was built, my buddy of mine has been working on It's a Trap, actually one of our contributors at thehyperloops.com. Nick Cuenca has been working on eAckbar decks in a number of different forms. Specifically, he had the eAckbar Hired Gun Rebel Trooper deck a while ago, and he's been working on that quite a bit. Really was impressed by It's a Trap, but didn't like the gun, the hired gun. I liked the trooper, but I really thought you lack some red weapons in the deck, and just red dice in general. I know it seems maybe counterintuitive to put in 2 yellow dice instead of having 1 and 1, but I think that gets neutralized by putting in the F11D rifles and TIE fighters, as we'll see later. And this is a competitive deck. I built it to be the best It's a Trap deck, and I think it does that by being the second fastest. I think probably Han Leia is the fastest It's a Trap deck, even though I think that's probably the weakest overall. But I'm sure it has its merits. It's just, 3 dice. What are you going to do? I really like 4 dice. I don't like playing 3 dice. So just to quickly go over the characters, Admiral Ackbar. This dude is the man. After an opponent plays or discards the last card from their hand, they choose and deal 2 damage to one of their characters. Couple things. When people are finishing their turn and want to get rid of that last card in their hand, that triggers Ackbar. Another thing to keep in mind, a lot of people don't realize, people like to take shortcuts. I try and never take shortcuts on reading cards because it leads to me screwing up. But they can't split the damage. They have to do the 2 damage to one single guy. And then Finn... Finn's not impressive in his game text. He lets us play with red weapons in vehicles, which after one set there isn't a lot of. However, his dice are sick. His dice are just like Django's, only better, because he has the shield instead of the modified resource side. Other than that, this guy just lays the beats, and when you can put F11Ds and IQA rifles on him, things get real. So this is the setup, only 19 health, which is certainly a drawback for a 2-character deck. I think if any deck can handle it, it's a red heroes deck, because they have Field Medic, which you can kind of see peeking in at the top right of the screen, as well as Dug In. I've set it up like this so you can see that when I get the shields, I put them on Ackbar. That's just what I do. I like to keep it even. I don't really care who they go after. I plan on trying to get some redeploy weapons on whoever's dying, and I think this deck is pretty successful at that. Like I said, I try and play this deck fast to claim every time, almost every time, because I play the dug-ins, because I play defensive perimeter. I also play the Frozen Wastes of Starkiller Base, and that's been really good against 3 and 4 character decks. They just don't, they're not in a rush to claim, and since I am, I can just about always use it for value. And if people want to play around it, it often leads to them making suboptimal choices with their dice, maybe not re-rolling as often as they should. And it also eliminates that the punishment factor of claiming early. I think there's been a couple videos on YouTube, and I think people sort of understand that if someone claims, this is your opportunity to roll and re-roll and try and maximize damage or get whatever you need to do to set up your next turn. And this helps prevent a lot of that. So let's dig in to this deck. So we're going to start by going over these weapons. Sorry, I hope you don't get motion sick. Still getting used to this. All right, so obviously these 8 red equips are huge, these upgrades. F11D is what Finn brings to the table. Redeploy, massive. 4 damage sides, including a special, which is great. Can be used with It's a Trap. Obviously 2 modified and 1 that costs a resource. Not optimal, but there's a reason why I went Holdout Blaster over Jetpack for my non-red gun, because I just wanted those added base sides. And Finn does a good job of doing base sides. The deck with It's a Trap and All In and Focus sides really helped. IQA, so strong, especially when you can pitch it early and use rearm. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Also has an insane special side, 2 base, 3 modified. The DH-17, pretty standard. The two whiffs can be pretty annoying. And then promotions, just sort of necessary evil. Great to play it early, draw a card, overwrite it later, get another weapon down on eAckbar when you can. And also a good card to pitch and then get a free play off of rearm that draws you another card. And its sides are good. You're gonna roll some damage with this deck, and when you don't, resource, focus, shield, those are all great sides. Second Chance, huge card, wins a lot of games. If you haven't had a chance to play Hero Yellow and run this, then I recommend you giving it a shot. I'm sure you've been on the ass end of it, and it is it's not fun to see. And then the Holdout Blasters. So when I first built this deck, I was using Jetpacks as my 1 non-red weapon. And I went with this because I realized that, A, I wanted more base damage, especially since some of these guns really don't have that much base damage. And furthermore, the ambush and the redeploy, both excellent when trying to be fast and having low life totals. So that is the explanation there. So 1 TIE Fighter, which is great for damage, base damage, great for shields. I think you could potentially even play 2. As you can see on my deck list over to the right of the screen, there is a meta slot at the bottom. So often I would say you should consider the TIE Fighter. We will get to that aspect of the deck in a little bit. But this card's just huge, and to play Finn, I mean, it's not enough to just do the F11D. I think the TIE Fighter puts it over the edge. Heroes get wrecked by shields, and this is one of the few cards that can deal with it. I know it's only 1 side, but there's a decent amount of focus in the deck. And again, All In on special is very real with this deck, with the F11Ds and the IQAs and this card. You know, you're not always going to win a game by playing All In for 10 damage to kill Django out of nowhere, but you can use it to good effect. And I think that just playing tight and using your cards for value when you can, even if it's not, you know, a blowout, if you can get value out of certain cards, which we'll talk about now, I absolutely do it. And I want to start with the very small removal package in this deck. It's just 2 electroshocks and just 2 defensive positions. Shock is great, obviously, really good. Because we're claiming so much defensive position, huge in this deck. Excellent against Vader Raider, excellent against Grievous, excellent against Ibala Django Trooper. Anytime you can catch 2 cards, I mean two dice, you just snap it off. You just do it. But also you can think of it as a flank electroshock type card, where if they have, especially against Vader, showing 3 damage, just take that 3 damage off the board. You don't always have to take 3 dice, so you can be a little patient and obviously play play what your opponent's giving you. But I wouldn't ever say, oh, only play this if you can catch 3 dice. Like, I've done it for 1, and in not always obvious situations. So that's just a card that I think is a little undervalued. People think it's pretty narrow, but if you build a deck to always claim, then I think you can really take advantage of this card. So next is the combo. I mean, it's not really a combo, but being able to load up eAckbar, hit and run him, and immediately it's a trap, especially mid-game after you've already put some damage on a guy, can be just backbreaking, especially against those range decks. I mean, obviously, that's what you're really looking to take it out with. Obviously, you can take some niche situations where the blue player, who's normally rolling sticks, has force throw or force training or mind probe or one with the force to show some range. But in general, against those decks, you want to pitch this. But if they do have those upgrades out and you do have it in your hand, there's no reason to just pitch it immediately. You can certainly try and take advantage of it. And Hit and Run's just a great card to be able to do, sort of what Django does. It's really great against Django because they roll in response to your roll, and then instead of resolving your dice, you can just electroshock or defensive position or whatever you need to do. And then All In is All In's sort of like a third It's a Trap. That's really the better card in the lightsaber versus lightsaber opponents. And obviously you need to roll a focus, but you have eAckbar, 2 eAckbar dice, and then promotion dice. And the promotion dice, you can move that focus into an eAckbar double focus, and then put 5 or 6 damage on the board with that. So All In's really strong, and you could consider running a second one for sure. I don't, but that's definitely in the short list of cards. So here's the most interesting decision I think about the deck is which of these to play. I think if you're trying to be the fast deck, each of these have merit. For one, I mean, it's great to get 2 resources with 1 action. There's no doubt about it. And Logistics is a strong card. However, being able to smuggling and pitch a weapon so that you can rearm is pretty great, especially when you can pitch an IQA or a 1-cost. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter what weapon because you're getting value, you're getting the resource, and then you're able to either later on or that very turn play the weapon out, and then it's just incredible value. And what I like about the smuggling, and I'm certainly leaning towards going smuggling. I played Logistics in the tournament, and it was great because with eAckbar's 2 resource sides, you're gonna hit almost every turn. You're gonna have that opportunity to play Logistics. Beyond the smuggling rearm synergy, this lets you do things like play a dug-in and a holdout blaster before you roll, or play an IQA when the very first turn of the game. So there's a lot of different ways that, well, you would say you're getting 1 resource for 1 action versus 2 resources for 1 action. Being able to do that before you roll out, I think, can be really strong and help you play the rest of your turn faster. It also kind of sucks to say, all right, I played a holdout, I rolled eAckbar, I roll Finn, I have a ton of red dice out, I could play It's a Trap if only I had another resource. I've got to waste a red die, most likely, since most of the dice are red, to play Logistics. It takes a gun off the board. It's not always eAckbar either. It can be a gun that has the potential to give you 2 damage. And it's an action in the middle of the turn. It gives them an opportunity to do things like use their Guardian keyword or just straight up mitigate a die. So by taking actions away from the time when the dice are in the pool, I think in this case it makes Logistics a weaker card. And Nick, who's one of my teammates here on the Hyperloops, it was his idea, and like most of his ideas, I was like, you're crazy. That's not right. And the more I think about it, and I do think it is right. And I'm focusing on starting up the Destiny TTS tournament league, which started today, and I wasn't gonna play this deck round 1, but now I kind of wanna. I'm not gonna, but I kind of wanna. I wanna continue to work on it. I'm ready to try the smuggling. So the smuggling rearm combination, ditch a weapon, play it later, or a promotion, just solid. And then the one thing that heroes can do, especially red heroes, is heal and play Dug-In. I mean, Dug-In, it's just a great card. I think it's a pretty relevant card in any meta. I think it's really strong against other hero decks, and I think if you've ever played heroes and someone plays it against you, you feel really just freaking depressed when you see it. And Field Medic can be tilting too. You know, someone has you close to death. Four damage to go is a lot different than 2 damage to go. And I think Field Medic creates a lot of situations, you know, game-saving situations. It can be especially backbreaking if you already have a second chance on Finn and they're really doing work to get it off, and they can't. So that's the main deck, and you know, goes pretty quickly because they're all two ofs except for second chance and TIE Fighter. And so that brings me to the meta slot. And I think one option for the last slot is definitely second chance. Second chance, so good. You want to get it out before they kill Finn. I find most people go after Ackbar, which, you know, I try and entice them to by putting all the, you know, the promotions on them and the guns on them. But this deck does a pretty good job, like a lot of decks do right now, which is, and switch out the weapons for redeploys. It has 4 redeploy weapons. And I think people are afraid of the second chance. I think people are really afraid of spending a lot of time trying to kill Finn and only to have me play second chance. So they go after Ackbar, take the sure thing where there's none of those shenanigans. That's what leads me to only play one, is I find most people go after Ackbar. So I don't need to get it super quick. And I'm definitely a player that no matter what deck I play, I just discard everything. Like if I'm not playing, if someone's claimed, and I have a dug in my hand, even if I need the dug in, like I'm pitching it. I just try and get through all 30 cards. So with that play style, I only play one. I think the other consideration here is the first order TIE Fighter. I think it's really strong when you can land it, and I think because you attribute 2 slots. By the way, this is you have to choose on these 2. You can't play all 4. I mean, you can, but then you're making other cuts that I'm not sure about. You could potentially cut. I don't know. I really don't know what you could cut. I mean, I can see where you say these are situational, but red yellow heroes has very little removal. So I think you should consider not cutting those things. You could cut something out of the combo, but I think you really need the one all in and hit and run. It's just too important, and I don't think you really want to cut the healing. You could, of course, go, if you wanted to slow this deck down, you could change these to hunker downs. You could switch the holdouts and maybe not use the holdouts, and really try and land those TIE Fighters. I think that's possibly a consideration. And then if you really want to go combo, you could play the third all in. I also have one tucked over here. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. I played a DL44, which is die removal. It's ambush. It's a strong ass gun, even though it only has 2 whiff blank sides. Being able to do 3, not letting people electroshock that, it's so good. So that's what I ran in the tournament. Didn't play it that much. Just never wanted to spend the 3 because I'm trying to be really fast and roll out quickly. I never wanted to play it to overwrite a weapon that had to die in the pool just to remove one of theirs. So I think there are situations where it's good, and I think it's a strong consideration. But for me, right now, I would make the 30th card the TIE Fighter and really try and focus on getting it out. If you wanted to do that, and I think you could also play, like if you found another card that you really hated in here, play 2 smuggling and a logistics to try and get these more expensive things out. But in general, I think that the deck is pretty strong, pretty fast. And furthermore, because it's fast, the reason why I designed it fast is because I think when it's fast, it beats the other It's Track decks. It gets your guys out. It puts those dice in the pool so that when they roll, if they're not rolling with hit and run, they're really putting themselves behind the 8 ball. And then you can be claiming faster than them, always removing their die, setting yourself up to use dug in defensive position, and just be a really strong deck. So I think this is, I mean, I'm not trying to say that this is tier 1, but a lot of us, we just go to locals with 10 to 12 people. And I certainly think that this can beat most decks in the meta. So give it a shot. And if you have any ideas, you want to tell me I'm freaking wrong, please do. I would love to hear it. All right, so check us out at hyperloops.com. We're at the hyperloops.com. Oh man, have I been saying hyperloops the whole time? We're the hyperloops. And we're at the hyperloops on Twitter and facebook.com/the hyperloops. So come get your hyperloops. We're going to be bringing you content every week, as many times as we can. Thanks for listening and watching.